Thank God you can put all the stuff. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to It's Take Work. It takes work. It takes work. See?
Yep.
See? Y'all already know. Very informal over here. I'm Stacy.
I'm Jelani.
And look, there are more people on the screen if you're viewing us from YouTube. If you're listening to us from the podcast platforms, we have guests. We have guests. We have in our midst the poetic power couple, Mr. Aquil Ali-Paige and his lovely wife, Yolanda Ali-Paige. Thank y'all so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Yes, we are so happy to have y'all. Let me tell you just a little bit about the poetic power couple. We actually met on Clubhouse when 2020 was happening and everybody was trying to get that human connection because it just wasn't happening for us and we needed some place to be creative. And so we all met on the Clubhouse platform, and Aquil and Yolanda ever since have been making strides up and down the East Coast, all across the country, with all of their creative niches. They have so many things that they're into. And so we're going to give them an opportunity to talk a little bit about who they are, what they're doing, what their mission is, what their purpose is. But the reason why we are here this good evening, as Jelani and I have mentioned to you, season 2 was going to be a little bit different. And so we wanted to bring some friends in on some very important conversations that we're having here on the It Takes Work podcast. And tonight we're starting the series, Friendship Foundation. And what better way to introduce that into the atmosphere than to start off with one of the greatest friendships, I think, when it comes to relationships, in Mr. Aquil Ali and his beautiful, beautiful wife. So Friendship Foundation Part 1 kicks off tonight. If you're viewing from YouTube, take a little time, like, comment, and subscribe. Now, remember, those comments got to be respectful because I'm not, if you aren't, And if you are listening from any of the podcast streaming platforms, please feel free to leave us a message. We will make sure you're able to connect with the Poetic Power couple by the end of this broadcast. And we do thank you so much for tuning in. So we're going to turn it over, right, to Mr. and Mrs. Ali-Paige. The floor is yours. Tell the people who you are.
Go ahead, Dan.
Aw. So we are the Pages, y'all. But our stage name came from this gentleman right here. His name is Aquil Ali. He is a poet, but he is also a producer. He does a lot of different things. My goodness. And when I met Mr. Aquil Ali, he wooed me with poetry. But the thing that connected us was that God thing. I was on my single journey. He was on his single journey, and God pretty much connected us. Now, goodness, what we decided to do with our platform, it stems from the fact that God brought us together. When we met, I was on a platform called, it was Waiting as a Single Christian. And he kind of connected with that to talk to the singles, to make sure that their wait was intentional. So that is one of the things that we continue to be passionate about, is making sure that singles wait with intention, under God, with God, walking with God. And now that we are married, it is kind of morphed into one accord lifing, because you cannot life without being on one accord. It is just impossible without being in agreement, is what the word says. Being on one accord is a foundation when it comes to being a believer. You're supposed to be on one accord with God. I walked into the marriage with that. He walked into the marriage with that. It was very easy for us to walk together in that purpose. So that is also something that we do. And then we're poets as well. Our poetry is very different in that our poetry centers around what we're walking in. So people love the poetry that we spit about each other. It's about not only a love, but it's a God-centered love. It's an intentional love. He always says his marriage is his ministry. So we move that way. and we're best friends. We are absolute
Facts.
100% best friends. We are lifing together as best friends. So if you need a poetry fix, we are your people. He is a brilliant poet. If you need someone to come in and talk about lifing as a married couple, because it says the two become one, but people forget about the becoming. It is not an instant thing. It is something that you have to walk out. We've been married a year and we're still learning things about each other. So, yeah, we are excited to be here. Any opportunity that we get to share who we are, we will take it most definitely. And yeah, you can find us on One Accord Lifing on Gmail. We have platforms everywhere under One Accord Lifing. And we're also underweighting as a single Christian because, again, that's our passion. We want to make sure the singles wait with intent so that God can bring them the person that they were designed to be with, created to be with, and not just accepting the status quo, bending your standards for the nonsense that is out there. Don't do that.
And you also can find us on Clubhouse under One Love Poetry Series.
Thank you, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. One Love Poetry Series is also on every streaming platform there is. It's all One Love. Yeah.
All right, all right. Well, look, thank y'all so much for introducing yourselves. And y'all are in for a treat tonight. If you are, as I mentioned, viewing from YouTube, you get a treat in person. If you're listening, you're going to get a treat with your ears. And so we're going to get into these. This particular series, when Jelani and I were working on the episode guide, we wanted to make sure the conversations where we were inviting other people in were, number one, they were relatable. But number two, they really spoke to some foundational principles for building a relationship. Like, even if it morphs into love, or even if the intent is to be in a committed love relationship, or even just building relationships that are going to be long term. Even like, I know this is called Friendship Foundation, but even when you are building a friendship, kind of like what we were talking about when we were just kind of preparing for tonight, you really do have to like each other. And so to kick this off and to start this conversation, I'll preface with, like, our friendship. We started out as friends. We started out with no real intent of dating because we were just getting to know each other. Right? When you say that was, because I mean, honestly, he was the homie. He was the one that, when you're friends with somebody, when you're true friends with somebody, you don't have to come out of the gate with any representative of who you are. You're just going to be you. And so, because that was the type of friends we were, it was like, I'm calling him and I'm talking about stuff that if I was trying to get with him, I'm definitely not going to say this out loud on the phone with you. So
that's like a 2-3 o'clock in the morning conversation.
Right. Right. And honestly, that friendship is what made it so easy to walk into this space of, oh, there are more feelings there and I want to explore them. And it really made it even easier to settle into that long-term relationship and dynamic that we had. Like, it was really easy for us to commit to each other once we acknowledged that feelings were there. And I know most people are like, oh, well, y'all must have known y'all liked each other the whole time. That is not the truth. From the very beginning, we were homies. That's what it was. I'm on the phone with him.
I like it.
Somebody I'm dealing with. I'm on the phone telling him about somebody I'm dealing with. He's on the phone talking to me about other things. And it's like, if this is somebody you're trying to get with, you're not going to talk about other people and other things you got going on. But
you're going to be a little more guarded.
Yeah, because I want you to think that you don't put this on my mind. I ain't
be the perfect person to you on the outside. You ain't gonna tell them all your stuff.
Absolutely. So this conversation tonight, I'm really excited to get into it with you, Yolanda and Aquil, because your friendship, I had the privilege of witnessing it from inception. And it was an absolute beautiful thing. And what made it beautiful was the imperfections of it. Because everything at the very beginning, the intent was break the ground from under their feet. And that's how you knew it was going to be something strong and it was going to be something to be reckoned with because of how much came out of the gate against you, just even building your friendship.
That's
so let's talk about it, to the ITW community. And let me just go ahead and say this just to say it. As you all know, this platform is not just about, married couples, engaged couples. This is about if you're divorced, if you think you like each other, if you think there's something going on, friendships, business relationships, because the truth is, in order to be in something that's longer than a temporary season, you gotta like each other. If you don't like each other, it's gonna fizzle real fast. So I'm gonna start out of the gate by asking the poetic power couple, what attracted the two of you to each other as friends? What made you look at that person and say, I at a minimum, if I can't have this person in my life at all, I at a minimum want to be their friend?
That was quote from Aquil Ali, direct quote.
Okay, so tell me about it. Let's talk about it. I like to hear
I'm gonna tell you right. I'm gonna keep it as honest as I can possibly please.
Hold on.
Please do.
Yeah. My wife was not trying to be just friends. She was very intentional. She's like, listen, I did that friend single life
Really?
10 years. I'm looking for a husband, and I believe you are him. Do you know I am your Eve? Because I need to know. I need a man that's intentional, that knows what he wants and know what he can see. And it's God, because God is telling me that you are him. But you gotta know. You gotta lead us into this. So you can't be iffy. And that's how it started. So the friendship actually started bigger after we got married, actually. I would say.
That's real.
Yeah, we got married to date. We didn't do it the other way because we a little older now. We ain't got all that time to be wasted. So we got married to date, to befriend, to do all this stuff. So in the beginning, it was all about calling the God and the reassurance of that. So that's what that was. So the friendship happened after the fact.
The beginning part of it was more the courting. It was more the who is he? What does he do? What is his intention? What is his purpose? What does he think his purpose is? So that first, and we only dated 5 months before we got married. Can we start with that? It was a 5-month courting period, so it was rather short. And the first 2 months of that was the Mister trying to wrap his head around the fact that this really could be it, trying to see if this was in fact his Eve, if this really was where God wanted him to be, because he'd been hurt before. He was very guarded. He wanted to make sure. So he's talking about me being guarded. Yeah. And being completely transparent, because we do that. That whole, if we can't be anything else, we can be friends speech came 3.5 months in, when we had already met, already said this is a God thing, already decided that this was it. So he was concerned that I wouldn't want him because of other things. He thought that, like I said, he had been hurt in the past. So he thought love in that aspect may come with conditions when it was being presented to him unconditionally. So that speech was that way because it was like, you ain't gonna take me all the way to X in the alphabet, then be like, but I'm cool if we go back to D. No. It's either all in,
right,
or we have to stop, because God is intentional.
Yep.
couldn't open up the floodgates and then be like, sorry. But let me say this though. Aquil never wavered when it came to what he wanted. He wanted me to be his wife.
Yeah.
There were other things that were at play trying to stop the whole thing before it started. That there were some questionings and some I wouldn't even say insecurities because he's not an insecure person, but there was just moments where the enemy played on certain areas and made him think I would walk away. That's what it was.
I'm glad you didn't.
And once he realized, it took all the way up to us walking into the courthouse until he said, man, she want to marry me after all. Up until that point,
I was shocked. I was like, I'm gonna walk all the way to the courtroom. And I'm just waiting till she be like, you know what, baby. She wasn't shook down one moment,
and not because of me, but because of what he had been through before. He needed to know. And Stacey, you and I had that conversation. I never put my foot forward for
I was trying to call a bluff.
Never. Never. That's just not my style. I let the man do the leading. And I remember when God told me you need to go see him.
Yeah, I remember when that happened too. Yeah, and I was glad she did. I was really
because I heard it very specifically
when I went to see
that
him.
Was your first when I first laid eyes on you. God told me that's your wife. Go and get it.
Right then.
Yeah.
Right then. So the things that we saw in the beginning had everything to do with God and nothing to do with us.
I think we was just two intelligent people that knew what we didn't want, connected to the word. That godly connection is powerful.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? That's what you get for waiting as a single Christian. Is you get in tune to your direction, especially in the matters of love, and you ask the right question.
Yep.
She's like, why you asking me if matches irritate my nose? Because I've been in some situations.
You see,
I need to ask questions.
He was asking some weird questions.
But the biggest thing was how she treated her kid. Because I got a lot of kids. So that was
But see, I think that, to y'all's point of the past experiences, to me, it represented how, hold on, y'all, because see, our audience already know that our podcast is not studio curated because we have background noises that we are not in control of. But anyway, I think that your past experiences can either strengthen you or weaken you, right? And even your hesitation, even any kind of easing into something because of what you've gone through, you got to think about how when we're asking God for things, because God thinks higher than we do, he moves differently. His whole thought pattern when it comes to around him blessing us is not going to be tailored to our intellect. Right. So when he does something for us, that's why it's so hard sometimes for us to receive it or even see it as something from God, right? And so the struggles that Aquil had all the way up until he walked into the courthouse had nothing to do with Yolanda. And it had everything to do with embracing this new thing that God has given him, and he gave it to him in a way that he wasn't used to.
I know
he
that's
was used to it coming a particular way, because then if something comes in a particular way, it induces a comfort zone, right? Even though we don't like comfort zones, you'll settle into it because then you can kind of guess what's going to happen next.
Right.
And he couldn't guess what was going to happen next, but he embraced it. And so that's why.
Here's my part. It was more like a too good to be true type of deal.
Right.
That was the new thing.
Right.
I'm used to being a little gutter, little ghetto, little. rough. I'm from Philly. You know what I'm
Thank
saying?
God you let God do the picking,
Listen,
brother.
I'm usually a little difficult. She just as smooth as she could be, you know. And I needed her. It's so blissful and
Mm-hmm.
so blessed. I tell my exes, I'm glad you messed up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad. I'm not even mad no more.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you. I hope you find what I found. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
May God bless. I'm telling you, I'm not even getting arguments with no more. God
Why?
bless.
Wait
I'm
till
serious.
yeah,
God
yeah.
bless you. I
Listen,
really
I be
want
finished.
you to be able to enjoy uh,
Yeah.
what I found in a
Yeah.
godly love.
Mm.
Because, I ain't
Mhm.
got time for nothing else. Every second of the day is about her, period. And people know. They be looking at us at restaurants, concerts, wherever we go, in the store.
It's real.
They like, oh no, y'all been together 50, 60
That
years.
happened today. Like,
I said, first of all, I'm only 50. That's,
Okay.
don't let the gray hairs fool you.
I'm older. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm older. I'm older.
And no, we New Jacks. We had to tell ladies today, man.
Today, she was like, "Hey, y'all are so beautiful. How long have y'all been married?" I said, "A year." She was like, "How long have you known each other?" A year and 5 months. She was like, "Wow."
Yeah.
But that when God does a thing, there
Mhm.
is no disruption. There's no time block. Remember, God lives in eternity. So it's like we were like-minded before we even laid eyes on each other. God already had that planned in eternity. So
And
yeah.
I planned my marriage. I knew what kind of husband I was gonna be if she's in fact my Eve. I used to tell her all the time. Like, if I find out you my late Eve, I already love you. You ain't got to worry about nothing. Trust me on this. And
Mhm.
people ask us all the time about a kid. How y'all get? How you get your chemistry? How y'all do? I know for a fact that 51% of my faith is treating my wife well.
Mhm.
So I'm halfway to heaven, baby.
Mhm. I
All
know
I got
that's
to do the rest of the work. Why make it difficult?
right.
Let God do the choosing and do what you're supposed to do. Make sure your wife sees the God in you and vice versa.
Mm,
That's it. That's
That's
it.
mm.
the key. You do that, you're not like, nah, I ain't gonna listen to no man. You gonna listen to God, is it? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You
You
so
gonna listen to
unique.
God, man?
You so
Okay,
unique.
cool.
But I think the thing too is when people again lean not to your own understanding, right?
Mm.
So when people take, and I'm probably gonna get some inboxes. Inbox gangsters love me for some reason. So weird.
Ah,
They really do. They love me. It's so
mm,
weird, you know. But this is why it's so easy for people to enter into things based on the lust of their flesh because they lean into their own understanding.
facts.
This is why we ended up in the situations we've ended up in the past. And it puts that promise out there that God will take what was meant for your bad and work it out for your good. To the point
Mm,
that you made earlier, Akil, you're not mad at your past situations because God could have left you right there. He could have left you right there
Right.
and been like, you made this decision. This what you got to live with. Good luck to you.
for
But he
life.
loved you enough that if you gave him one more opportunity, if you opened yourself up just a little bit more, God's like, I got something for you. I got something for you. You're never too old. It's never too late. I got something for you. I got something for you. And so you opened yourself up. You yielded. You postured your heart toward him, and he was able to give you everything he wanted you to have from the foundation of the world. But
Mm,
your past experiences were not wasted.
They
that's
learning
No,
right.
experience.
no,
Absolutely.
I
You
have
figured out
beautiful
who
things.
you were and who you wanted to be for her. She was figuring out who she was and who she wanted to be for you before she knew who you were. And
It's so intentional. It's like I dropped in Yolanda's life in the perfect time, especially when it comes to dealing with Jeremy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, that the timing was incredible.
That's our 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And with even with the older kids, they are now grown, living their own lives, got their own marriages and everything, and finding their way. We are all together, just
Mm-hmm.
learning
Right.
how to keep a connection with Almighty. Uh, you know, it's just a different flow. You got a little Jesus in
That's,
it.
that's
It's
it.
just a different flow. I know for a fact if I had uh, got saved before 2016, I know I would have been a better father,
Mm.
better husband, better boss, better friend. So, now that I am, Yolanda reaps all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I don't know when I stayed in the house, focused, razor sharp with a woman like this
This is
ever.
this is real life. For those that are wondering, is he like that all the time?
But here's the deal. It's like when I was doing my single walk, my celibate single walk, I really got into me, what do I need? What the guy got for me? What am I planning for? And,
Mm.
and stuff. I had a real heart to heart with myself.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, to heal. You hurt people. So I had a lot of healing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Untapped pain and people in my family, they know something is big time different. We are on our way to Philly in July. They want to meet her like crazy. We got people coming in Thanksgiving because I don't know. I guess I had a snarl before. And they like, you happy, you look
Oh,
different. You're smiling all the time. We see your book face. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I just call it. And
Mhm.
that young lady got you right. I said she's a woman of God. When I introduce her to them
mm-hmm.
over the phone, when I say, "Oh, she's a woman of God," blah blah blah, it snap. They know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't get no more crazy question. You know, it's just a beautiful thing when people are looking at the God in you,
Hmm.
Yep.
than just, oh, she got this, she got that, she a little thick. I like that. No.
Why you got to bring up that? What are they talking about
He
being
would,
thick?
be, he would be remiss not to mention that. He
Oh
would be
my
remiss
God.
not to mention that. Let him talk about it. All right. That's what we here for.
That's why I tell her all the time. I said, listen, I'm in love with all of you, the God in you, your
Mm-hmm.
physical. Her intelligence is crazy. Uh, I'm a big fan of how she put things together logically, intelligently, her spiritual life, her motherhood, everything, her friendship. She my baby.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
my baby.
thank you, baby.
Well, I do want to really, I want to, because something that I think I really can appreciate about the two of you is that genuine interaction, right? We've all been around long enough to know how, relationships can be manufactured, especially in the age
Mm,
of social media.
facts.
Curated content is just this thing now. And
Facts.
so when you do encounter genuine, healthy, dynamics like what you all have, a lot of times it catches resistance, right?
Right.
So I'd like for you all to share with our audience, because one thing that I found in kind of pulling data from the first season of It Takes Work, and then the counseling that Jelani and I do, some of the information we hear in there, is it is really hard for people to like each other. So what are some of the things that God has done in you that really makes you like each other. So when you do things that make you that deem you unlovable, like you have gotten on my nerves and I'm sick of you, you know, I'm real sick of you, real sick of you. But the I'll never put you out. I'll never tell you to get out because you remember the days you came home from work and it was hard. You remember crying your eyes out, and that was your person that you could just lay your head on their shoulder, say nothing, and sob, or sit, laugh real good when you didn't think a laugh was going to belt out of you today. So what are some of the things? What are some of those characteristics that connected you all to build that foundation of the friends that you are?
Stole the question.
I did. Okay. Well, you can ask the next one.
I'm good.
Okay.
Start. Jump in.
Okay.
One thing that we said early on, and it's interesting that you asked that question because we often talk about that. We talk about that a lot. That we joke around. I like you. Oh, I like you too. We fell in like with each other before we fell in love with each other. The like was there in the beginning. And it was a running ha-ha moment between the two of us. And he said that. He said, people say they love you, but they run out on you. People say they love you, but it's not, it's unconditional, come with conditions, right? So let's start with that. We came into this with that likability, like each other sort of vibe. Love was there as well, but I told him two things when we were dating. I told him I liked him and I told him I respected him. It was real. I did. And those two things got his attention big time because he said, not everybody will like you. And that's the biggest thing you could have said to me, was that you respected me. And that's before I knew that that's what God needed to be said to get to its heart. So God did the leading kind of ahead. And that, in essence, is what you need in a marital relationship during those moments. If the love is unconditional, I spent the first 6-7 months looking him in his face and saying to him, because it was necessary, there's nothing you can do to make me change my mind. Nothing. There's nothing you can do. There's not an argument we can have. There is not an act that you can take. There's nothing that you could do that could make me walk away from this unless you walk away first. Then all bets are off. And he said, well, you ain't got to worry about that because I'm going to the grave with you. I'm going everywhere with you. You can't hide from me. You will not be able to go anywhere. I will stalk you if you try to leave me. His word. And interestingly enough, I bring it up because it's in context to the conversation. I said the exact same thing to my first husband. And I told him that. I was there.
He's stupid.
Okay, so don't. So I told him, I said, same thing. I'm here. I'm here. So if you, now you are the frame. Yeah, it's you, sir. You went backwards. So when I told him that, there's still but a lot of that anxiety started to reduce because I think in this day and age, that's the age that we live in. You do something wrong, I'm out the door. I'm out. I'm gone. Peace. I ain't got to deal with this. So it was that you can't do anything to cause me to break covenant moment that we both had with each other. He says the same thing to me. So there's nothing that can happen, number one, that can break it. But number two, when these moments happen, I want to get us back to peace as soon as possible. It changes the posture of the disagreements when your whole purpose is to get you back to peace so you can continue on your journey lifing together. So if he gets perturbed at me, doesn't last long, or he prays. This is a praying man. Our 14-year-old is high functioning autistic. He gave him a moment Friday morning. He let me sleep in. It's a beautiful man. He let me sleep in because he knew I had a long week. And he took Jeremy. And Jeremy didn't want to get up. Usually when Jeremy doesn't want to get up, he comes and gets me. We tag team. Go get him. He's not getting up. I'm out. I'm finna go make breakfast. But this time, He stayed in there, and Jeremy tried him. And he said he went downstairs and prayed. And by the time he got back up there, Jeremy was completely dressed. We approach our marriage exactly the same way. When those moments happen, our aim is to get some agreement, to get in agreement.
Yeah.
If we're not in agreement, we figure it out. If we have to walk out of it not in agreement, we agree that we're not going to agree, but we're not going to let it disrupt our walk, disrupt covenant, and disrupt the intimacy. Not just in the bed intimacy, but I'm talking about this is intimacy right here.
Yeah.
It's being close to my husband, heartfully close. I will never let any disagreement keep us in a position where we are not there, because that's where the favor happens. That's where the blessings happen, in that place. So we don't allow those things to take us to a place where we don't like each other. That is an impossible state of being in our marriage. Nobody takes the place of my husband, and nobody takes my place in his life. When things go awry, we go to God or we go to each other. Period. Point blank. Ain't no friends, ain't no folks, ain't no men's, ain't no women's. Nobody knows us but us.
Keep that circle real small.
Like a Cheerio.
It's like a Cheerio where we both fit in there. There's
like
nobody.
Check the dirt.
So when he gets upset, he goes to the Almighty or he goes to me. And he started that. It's not like I was doing it, but he was the one that was his mandate. He posted on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Jelani, I don't like you.
So I don't think there has been a moment in our marriage where I haven't liked him. He's gotten on my nerves. Jesus, this is a calling. He's done it because he's from Philly, and he is unapologetic about his Philly ways. God has softened him. I have softened him, but there's still some Philly in there. But I will never get to a place where I don't like him. I love him, and at his worst, I will love him and like him. At his worst. But
you see, that's why it's so important for there to be the friendship dynamic. Because if you solely based it on how attracted you were to each other, or even something as linear as, because sometimes we can be obedient to God under duress. And God's like, I like a cheerful giver. So if you're giving anything I'm asking you to give, I need you to give from a place of joy and happiness. And so that's what y'all have, that what you guys have is what makes it so cohesive. The number one thing that solidified who you were was your willingness to be obedient individually and collectively. Because without that, you wouldn't have been able to start anything, at least not anything that would last. And then God was like, all right, so now I'm going to build that dynamic between the two of them that will make them inseparable. Because in order for you to hold on to that covenant between you and God, you had to establish those things in order. And so I really like how you mentioned what won't come in between you, right? What won't come in between you? Because I think we do that. I had to get out of the habit of doing this when I got upset about something. Let me call my sister. Let me call my girlfriend. Because you have to remember that what you feeling in that moment, if y'all don't deal with it in your house, folks ain't gonna forget. And then whatever they got on their mind.
Yup, he said that.
Whatever they're dealing with concerning you, they're gonna try to put their 2 cents. You done forgiven and moved on. Whatever he did.
Right. Don't you remember what he did? And we listen to God. Listen, if we're in the middle of a disagreement and God tells him to humble himself, he'll do it. If I'm in the middle of a disagreement and during those brief moments where I'm incorrect, it happens once or twice, I will humble myself. We equal. I will humble myself and listen to God, even if I don't like it, even if he don't like it. We won't carry that forward. So that is the thing that I can bank on. is he will listen to God, no matter how frustrated, even if he disagrees. He did something this morning. Ooh, we had a discussion. It was an interesting discussion before what's the word. And I was like, when you go into a particular conversation as a woman of God to your husband, you think they're going to be like, all right, baby, I'll do it. No, not all the time. My husband will go, well, why? Well, what we got to do that for? Well, what's the deal with that? Well, I don't see what the problem is. And I'm thinking, God, this is your son. Why don't he see this? Is this not, it's clear. But at the tail end of it, God was like, humble yourself. Listen to your husband and trust him. Oh yeah, that was easy to do when I knew I was right in the situation. But that's what God told me to do, and that's what I told him. I was like, God told me humble myself, to trust you with this. And but believe this though. God, now this is between you and God. I'm out of it. So now you are accountable to God. Watch your back. I'm not in it anymore. And he has to assume he loves that. He has to assume the responsibility of the situation.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, he was already doing stuff. God had already talked. He was already doing. So that's another thing in those moments. If you are both surrendered to God, all things work together for good. That's not just people be thinking that means money. No, that means any and all situations on any end of the spectrum. If you love God and you are called according to his purpose, all things will work together. That means if you are surrendered and sold out to God and you are humbled under his will, that will also work together. It will. It will. We love God. We're called. It'll work together.
That's
Anything
it.
else you want to add to that?
What was the question again?
First of
What are
all,
the characteristics
mind your business.
The characteristics of what?
Of your friendship that connected you together?
No, that was the first question.
That was the first question. The second question was,
question was, when we get into those moments.
Yeah, when you don't like each other. When you're unlovable, but you like each other. What do you do when you get in those moments where you've done some unlovable things?
Prayer. A lot of prayer. I mean, that's the go-to, and it's a beautiful go-to. I almost like seeing it and watch God work. It's amazing how things just work out. I mean, it's really amazing. When I try to approach you through my flesh, it never works out.
Never. Like never. I understand that.
I make it worse.
Yeah.
But when I soften my heart and just, had that what would Jesus do moment.
Yeah.
It's just beautifully how the Father just works. I let God do God. So that's the best way I can describe it. You know what I mean? And it's a go-to now. Because I've had the terrible go-tos. Like I was the one that packed up a whole house in an hour. I was so upset when I wanted to leave a marriage. Go widen to my mom and talk to my boys or hit the bottle, or some other thing. But now my go-to is straight prayer. And by the time it's all said and done, I will get the vision, the revelation that I need to do what's best for my family as a man of God. And I don't, that's all I can describe it
as. Amen. Yeah. Amen. Mr. Wilson, what's your question for the Poetic Power Couple?
Well, my better half already stole my original question.
Wait a minute.
Jack them.
The question hand popping in my head is for both of y'all. How did y'all friendship with God impact the way you look at your friendships, in marriage and just in general friendships?
I can answer that.
Go at it.
let me tell you something. Um, Back in the day, my best friend, my boys, even my kids would come before said person I was with. So the flip side is knowing the order. No one comes before the wife.
Mm,
Not mama, relatives, auntie, not children. Uh,
mm-hmm.
especially when God chose the wife for you. So how you gonna go against what God and gave? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife is so beautiful about it. It doesn't even feel like a pecking order. She's very regal in her position. And as she takes that helpmate thing to the fullest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we know who we are, where we stand in each other's life. We are we. And you know, it goes through we got, like she always said, we gotta be in agreement. So anytime said friends gotta be our friend. We gotta be conducive to what we got going on, or it's the direct problem. Quick. And they will be deleted.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? And we've had a couple situations where there's her so-called friend
what?
Uh-oh.
Hmm.
has been, they had to learn that we are now a we.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. Now,
Who you talking about?
now,
Tell you
what
after something.
with certain of her friends, like, you know what I mean? I know the dynamic of a woman getting with her girl and having girl time and all. I know they're important because all they're gonna be doing is talking about me, and she's gonna be talking about her. I'm there and I ain't there. So go ahead. Y'all go ahead, have a good time. You know what I mean? So
You so you so
I don't
sweet.
trip. But
The
me, I don't have I used to have homegirls. And I don't need them no more. I don't know what happened. Just I don't know. It just
I
faded
d-
like that.
A
so
natural
so
progression.
to answer to expound on it, his ideal of best friends originally didn't start with God himself. He saw God as father and not necessarily friend, so to speak.
You know.
Hmm.
That was his question. It's okay. I
You
got
see?
you. I got you. I got your back. I got your back. I. It's okay. I got you, baby. I got you, baby. I got you. I got you. I viewed God as um when we walk as single women in Christ, we're supposed to revere God as our Father, but also, biblical days also astute him to be your husband in a lot of ways. So you
Mm-hmm.
can start to learn that you're yielding to
Mm-hmm.
God. You're checking with God before you do anything. You are respecting God. You are listening to God even when you don't want to. That made it very, very easy to transfer that to the man of God that God gave me when he
Mm-hmm.
showed up on the scene. It was very, very, it was a seamless transition, as a matter of fact. So,
Is that
yeah,
what he had? I missed
it's okay, baby. It's okay.
My goodness.
All right, baby. It's okay. But I know what Akil heard, and that is also the case.
Hmm.
But yeah, yeah.
What's the
So
question again? Because I want to answer it right.
All right. So the original question was, how did your friendship with God impact the way you view your friendships in your marriage and just friendships in general?
that's why I
Gotcha.
said you viewed God more as father than
Gotcha.
friend,
Yeah,
so to
that's
speak.
what threw me off. I got
Did I answer okay for you? Yes. Okay.
Because I
So
tell my kids all the time, I ain't your friend. I'm your father.
So he didn't see God as exactly.
Yeah, so
He didn't see the relationship as friend. But you know, I am a friend of God. We
And
are.
I'll insert something in here that helps, right?
Yes.
Because let's look at it from the perspective of the Godhead. All right. God the Father, whose spirit hovers above the earth and cannot commune with sin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the fathering nature of who he is in his self-existence. Let's put him there. But your friend of God, who Jesus, he is God, 100% man, 100% God, wrapped in the flesh. Jesus walked through what you walked through.
Facts.
Jesus dealt with the same things you dealt with in this flesh. His, do I give in to myself or do I yield to the Father who is above me? However, in the Godhead, Jesus is God, the Spirit of God, the full nature of who God is in his totality, but he was wrapped in flesh. And so, how you can help yourself in that dynamic is the friend you have in God is the God who wrapped himself in flesh to walk this life out for you, bear your sins, take on everything that made you, that took away the ability for you to commune with God that hovered above, the Spirit of God that rested above the earth, right? And so, that's how like my approach to Jesus is from the friend perspective, because Jesus is that friend for me that I can be 100% myself, because he already knows what's going on in my heart. So I ain't got to mix words with him, right? When I walk in my prayer room, he know I want to call some of God's children not God's children.
Mm.
So because of that, I'm gonna go in my prayer room exactly how I feel. But that's the friend I have in God. But I have a reverence for God the Father enough to leverage the relationship I have with the friend I have in God who came in the earth for me.
Mm.
So yeah, I got you now, because God is very funny to me. He always tell me, Akil, you stupid.
Look, he
Give
can
me
get
the
real
wheel.
honest like that
He do.
sometimes.
He talks straight to me like that too, Akil. I
Yeah,
understand.
like, give me the wheel. Let me handle it. I got you. So I got you. Yeah.
It's crazy how Akil, if there's one thing that I could say about Akil, the relationship that we had and the connection that we had initially, one thing that Akil said to me that kind of made me go, well, why would you say that? But I get it. He said, you sure you don't want to marry a pastor? You sure you don't want to marry a pastor? You're so spiritual. You're so attuned to God. His words. You sure you don't want to marry a pastor? And I said to him, a pastor probably would try to position me in a particular way given his godship. But you, sir, have more God in you than you give yourself credit for. I'm holy hood, but he's a holy hustler. We just kind of fit together very beautifully.
And
So it's interesting. I think that once he understood exactly, God speaks to him and he listens. That is the most beautiful heart. That is why David was given the title that he was given. It was because even through all his mess, he listened. He listened. Even when he made mistakes, he came right back. He knew God. He knew God.
Yeah.
When he messed up, he talked to himself like, you already know. Why so despondent? Why so yet hope in the Lord? He had that relationship with God, and he has that relationship with God. It was very easy for him to trust who God gave him and put that friendship into play. For y'all that want to know, we base our friendships on the same sex a lot of the time, that we can only have those deep-seated friendships with the same sex because you're too busy lusting after the opposite sex to have those friendships. But when Akil met me, I told him I already had a handful of very deep-seated friendships with men that I had no interest in. They had no interest in me, even though he would say, nah, they liked you. They just didn't tell you. I keep telling you, no, it's not. Dang, brother. No, it's not true. But I already knew what that looked like. I was
Mm-hmm.
already friends with their wives. I was already friends with them. I already knew what that looked like. So when I told him I had friends that were men, he's like, well, that's gone. Now I'm your best friend. You ain't got no more friends.
She does.
That's over. That's over. And I had to help him understand. But that's the type of friendship it was. It was just a friendship. And he
Right.
had to meet them and talk to them. Ain't quite 100% yet, but we're getting there. See,
They can come to the cookout.
so
Listen, that's a good.
That's a
That's
step
how you
forward.
made it. You invited me to cook while you was halfway down the road.
Yeah, they can come to the cookout.
he's so special. So yeah, it was a different dynamic for Akil
Mm-hmm.
to have a wife that was a best friend. I don't think he's had that. Have you had any of
Mm-hmm.
your wives? He's never had that. He never had that. So it was a different dynamic for him. He had no frame of reference. Some of the people that he called friends did interesting things with his ex-wife. He didn't
Oh,
trust the friend Nomer any longer. I hope they're not watching, but if they are, he probably gonna be like, well, she shouldn't have did it. It's free game. But
we ain't worried about nothing. This is
yeah,
all edification
so
and growth.
it was different.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock in friends anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. So it was a different dynamic when he walked into a marriage where he could be best friends with his wife.
But see, I knew what kind of person she was before we got married. Her
Mm-hmm.
obedience to God. So all I got to do is show her the God in me, and I'm gonna get
Mhm.
the same obedience
Facts.
to how things should be in our marriage. Period. So I don't worry about nothing.
I
I
know
trust
that's
her
right.
150%. Yeah.
I know that's right. Well, I appreciate y'all for being on here tonight. Y'all are busy. I know y'all busy. So I'm so thankful that y'all carved out a little bit of time in the Poetic Power Couple's super busy schedule to
Hmm.
chop it up with me and Mr. Wilson here on It Takes Work.
First guess.
Listen, our first guest, and we are so glad, and we're gonna have y'all back. All right, we're gonna have
Yes.
y'all back, and we're trying to have y'all join us on this couples trip that we're putting together for 2024. Now, y'all let Jamaica slide
24.
by.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all
Yeah, I
let
told
Jamaica
you that.
slide by. Jamaica
Yeah.
happening in July,
Yeah.
but we're trying to go somewhere next year. We're trying to decide
Yeah.
between Aruba and Cacao. So we're gonna
Mm,
let y'all
Oh,
know.
okay,
We're gonna
now
put it out there because it
yeah.
would
let's get it.
so wonderful if we could have the Poetic Power couple join us on our couples retreat next year.
So
Done.
this is just a couple thing. Don't bring no kids with you, right?
Mm-mm.
No,
Unless your kids are adults and
they got
married
their
and they
own
got
people.
couples, yeah.
No.
No,
No. It's gonna be just us. We are not. No. No. No.
no,
No.
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 See, don't mess around and bring some kids. See?
Facts.
Don't bring no children. Don't bring
That's
no
like, don't you want to babysit your grandbaby? No!
children.
Mm-mm.
I should get in.
Really? Really?
No.
So cute.
So we have you guys' email streaming on the screen here for those that are viewing on YouTube. If you are listening, it's one accord lifin, LIFIN at gmail.com. Connect with them. I'm telling you, if you want them on your podcast, you want them to perform, I promise it'll be worth the investment that you pay to have them be a part of any of your productions. Okay. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Okay. Y'all stay tuned. If you are tuned in to It Takes Work, this series, like I said, we're continuing with part 2. We got a set of guests coming up next month. And then after that, we have Lead with Love. And so we are so excited to share these series with you. Thank you so much, Akil. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
Appreciate it.
And we look forward to communing with y'all again very, very soon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It Takes Work. We are out for the night. Y'all take care.